but to be speaking. There are plenty of guys here that should be up here instead of me. In preparing for this speech, I went through all the great Marine Corps quotes and a whole bunch of history, and one really stuck out to me. Secretary of Defense, Marine Corps General Mattis said, "There's no better friend and no worse enemy, or no worse enemy than the United States Marine." Rather than go through the history books today, I'm going to tell a couple of stories that I think embody that quote. Corey Oxland, he couldn't make it today, he had to work, unfortunately. Corey Oxland and I went to Parris Island together in the summer of 2005. The way he got there wasn't the traditional route to becoming a Marine. Or maybe it was. To be perfectly honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I graduated high school, I worked a couple different jobs in the area for about a year. I was just trying to find myself and who I wanted to be. And one day I joined the New London Fire Department, and I was up there washing trucks. And Corey Oxland came to me and said, "Hey, I'm meeting with a Marine Corps recruiter today, you should sit in on it." First word out of my mouth, nope. Slowly throughout the day, that nope turned into a, okay, I'll sit in on the meeting, but only so I can stop you from doing something stupid like joining the Marines, right? So, that recruiter showed up, dressed to the nines in his dress blues. Immediately, girls walking on Main Street stopped and stared. Everybody, let's be honest, everybody stopped, stared. They were in complete awe of this man in that uniform. Needless to say, Corey Oxland and I joined the Marines that day. That's how I got there. Prior to leaving for boot camp, most poolies will go to the poolie events, they'll work out, they'll study Marine Corps history, or they'll do pretty much anything they can to prepare themselves for boot camp. Not me. I still had no clue to what I was getting myself into. We arrived at Parris Island and I promptly failed the entry PT test. So I grabbed my bags and I lined up outside with the rest of the fat bodies to march over to the fat body platoon. I was pissed. I was super pissed at myself. Oxland's inside with a bunch of the other guys that we had met, getting ready to start boot camp. I'm about to eat rice and run every day, all day, for 2 weeks until I can pass that test.
PCP.
Yeah. Pork chop. Pork chop platoon, yeah. Fat body, pork chop. So, as we're about to step off, the senior drill instructor of my platoon, I didn't know that was my senior drill instructor at the time. He comes up to me and he says, "What's your name?" And I said, "Jamie." He said, "Jamie what?" And I said, "Jamie McKenna." He said, "Jamie McKenna what?" He's obviously waiting for the sir that did not come out. I'm still pretty fired up at myself. He went on to ask a few more questions. None were answered the way that he would have liked. That man then said these words to me: "Get your shit and get inside, because I'm going to ruin your life for the next 13 weeks. So, much to Oxland's amazement, I come running back into the squad bay with my sea bags. And the only words I could get out of my mouth were, "I think I fucked up." Pardon me, if anybody's offended by the language. You can use your imaginations for the next 13 weeks. It's probably what you're thinking. After graduation, we came here for a 2-week leave period in November. It was during that leave period I learned 2 very valuable lessons. Both were learned here at this birthday lunch. We were invited because we were on leave and we didn't have a birthday ball to attend. The first lesson that I learned sitting here and talking to you all, some other Marines that have passed on, was that I would never be the Marine that you all were. I got to sit here and listen to stories of Marines who fought in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, the Gulf War, and many other conflicts. Hearing those stories and speaking to you all, I was in complete awe of your courage and commitment to the Marine Corps in this country. I started thinking to myself, how the hell am I going to be half the Marine that these men are? How am I going to be a part of the generation that is tasked with keeping on the tradition and the legacy of the world's finest fighting force? The guest speaker was a major who was in charge of Marine recruiting to the Northeast. He gave a fantastic speech. After the speech, the major and the sergeant major pulled Oxley and I aside to ask about our recruiting process, boot camp, how we're doing, if we wanted any recruiter assistance leave over the holidays. During this conversation, I said the word "yup" to the major at least a dozen times. So, yup to a major 12 times. The sergeant major then calmly pulled me outside and around back over there somewhere. And he had a heart-to-heart conversation with me regarding the word yup in addressing a major. And you get what I mean when I say heart-to-heart conversation. So, lesson number 2 was don't do that again. That was the second time I remember thinking, man, I messed up, right? There'd be many more times throughout my short 5 years in the Corps that I would think the same thing, but we don't have enough time here today. So after all that, I had a lot of thinking and reflecting to do. And I decided that while I was never going to be the Marine that has gone before me, I would do my best. And I think that I did. I never said yup to a major again. And I kept you all and the Marines that went before me close in heart and mind when times were tough. The funny thing about Marines is that no matter where we are in this world, and no matter how alone we might think we are, if we bump into another Marine, a complete stranger, it's an immediate connection. I had plenty of drinks in airport terminals with Marines that I had never met and I never met again. And to the average passerby, we look like long-lost friends. Marines have a certain personality. We're all different, but we have the same personality. There's a little piece, albeit a tiny little piece, of every single one of us that is the same. Are there any West Coast Marines here?
No.
Yeah. They don't have the same piece. They're a little bit different. So this is something that we have. It creates that bond between every Marine. A bond, it's a brotherhood. It cannot be broken, even in the hardest of times. Corey Oxley, who, once again, he couldn't be here today, unfortunately. We went to boot camp, a couple of schools together before heading off in different directions. During that time, he bailed me out of more stupid situations I got myself into than I can count. He's the no better friend part of that General Mattis quote. We're still great friends to this day. Dan Knox, who is here today in the back, first year here, is the husband of my wife's best friend. The first time we met was at a party for a work party for our wives. My wife Katie said to me, "My friend's husband is a Marine, I think you'll get along." I'm not quite sure I talked to anybody else that night. Dan and I were too busy bullshitting and drinking together.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. Marshall Osgood, unfortunately he had a funeral to attend today, so he couldn't make it here. He was a detective at the New London Police Department before retiring last year. For those of you that don't know, I worked for the New London Police Department.
So they did a free pass and
Yeah.
pulled over.
Not working today.
We get the chips though.
There's no other officer at the NLPD that I would rather go into a gunfight with than him by my side. He's a crazy dude. If anybody knows Marshall, he's a crazy dude. I was out on a felony stop with a truck with 2 shady guys in it a few years back. Felony stop's high risk. Usually the occupants are wanted for felonies, they've committed a violent crime, or they're a threat to law enforcement. So my backup officer arrives, we have our guns drawn, and we're calling the occupants out of the vehicle to lay down on the pavement. These 2 guys were not going down easy. They've been known to carry firearms in the past. They were moving all over the inside of that truck, and they weren't responding to our commands. They had already tried running from me in the truck, and all we were met with on our verbal commands was them yelling back, "Nope, we ain't getting out." Well, they thought they weren't getting out, because Marshall showed up. So, we're parked behind the truck, my backup, like normal, right? Police stuff. All of a sudden, I hear the rev of an engine. and come flying past me is Marshall's cruiser. Not just past me, but past the truck itself. I'm thinking in my head, what is this guy doing? So the cruiser makes a U-turn, goes head-on with the truck, and stops about 5 feet in front of it. Marshall jumps out with his pistol drawn, walks straight towards these two guys, straight towards the windshield, and yells, "Get the fuck out of the truck, assholes!" I have never seen two men move as fast as they did that day. They were immediately face down on the pavement, apologizing for whatever they had done. To those two men, Marshall was the no worst enemy part of that General Mattis quote. But this right here, this is all part of it. This lunch, my wife's work party, the felony stop with Marshall, and the good times Corey Oxlund and I had. This is why the United States Marine Corps is the most feared fighting force in the world.
Amen.
We don't need to train with the same Marines for 10 years to be good at fighting. We just need to be with another Marine, any Marine. Our brotherhood is the strongest in the world, and that's what scares the enemy. So, I would like to toast. To the bond we share with each other, to the Corps, and to this great country. Happy birthday, Marines. May you spend 5 minutes in heaven before the devil knows you're dead.
Amen.
Thank you for having me.